Hello there, I'm MountPain27, and this is Dean of Doom, the show where we give grades to classic and contemporary Doom wads. Why? Because ranking things is fun. Today's episode will be dedicated to the Japanese Community Project, or Jpcp, a megawad released in 2016, made up entirely of levels created by members of the Japanese Doom community. Spearheaded by Tatsuya Ito, better known as the legendary Doom speedrunner tatsurd-cacocaco, Jpcp was the first major megawad to come out of Japan, and arose from Ito's desire to help keep the small but passionate community alive. In the megawad's text file, the project leader explains, Doom is a minor game in Japan, so the community in Japan is very small. The community has been weakening year by year, so we started this project to strengthen our solidarity, improve mapping skill, and so on. We aimed for a low-threshold project which anyone could participate in. Despite this disclaimer, Jpcp was named the winner of one of 2016's CAC Awards, and quickly developed a reputation as one of the most colorful and varied megawads to come out in recent years. This is another audience recommendation that I'm very glad I received. Thanks folks, I don't deserve you. Before we dive in, here's how the show works. We give each level in the wad 2 grades, one for quality and one for difficulty. We grade quality from A to F, and difficulty from X to E. X for extreme, E for easy, and A through D in between. A grade A level is fun, memorable, visually distinctive, creative, and a fair challenge. Lower grades indicate the level lacks some or all of these qualities. Bear in mind that I'm no Doom sensei, and these reviews reflect only my opinions, so our definitions of difficulty and great map design will surely differ. Disagreeing is part of the fun, after all. At the end of the day, this show is really about spreading the joy of Doom, so let's do so. For the new viewers in the audience, here are the rules. 1. We play on ultraviolence. 2. We play each level from a pistol start. 3. In order to review the WAD, I must have played it at least twice. 4. Saves are allowed, but discouraged. And 5. I go for 100% kills in all levels, making exceptions in cases where it's just not worth it. I play on Z-Doom, with compatibility settings on strict. Now to the WAD. Map 1, First Assault. This map is so anonymous and by the numbers it could be the opener to almost any megawad. It's a small outpost with a modest cast of low-tier demons, a catchy MIDI, and a couple of secrets you won't need. You can knock it out in under 3 minutes. I think project leader tatsurd-cacocaco did the honorable thing taking this map in the next one, because opening for a community project is an unenviable task. It's hard to really flex your mapping muscles when players expect something short and agreeable out of a map 1. Anyway, First Assault gets the job done. Grade B-, difficulty E. Map 2, Rural Minibase. Tatsurd-cacocaco keeps the ball rolling with Rural Minibase, which is exactly what it sounds like, bite-sized and built to be blazed through. It's a bit harder than the opener, introducing a few Doom 2 monsters, but the risk of death is still minimal. Once again, this map isn't rave-worthy, but I've enjoyed myself every time I played it, and Rise of the Triad music is always welcome. Grade B, difficulty D-. Map 3, The Sign of Armageddon. Something about this map is slightly off-kilter. Maybe it's the contrast between the up-tempo music and the Forgotten Temple setting? I think the shadowy lighting, musty tunnels, and natural landscape call for something more ambient, but that's just me. Some of the encounters here are pretty tricky to deal with for a map 3, especially since you never get a super shotgun. I guess I don't mind this map, but it seems older than it really is, and the action is hit or miss. Grade C+, difficulty D+. Map 4, Thaumasia. Enter Barabo Jr., the glue that holds the Japanese community project together. He has the most mapping credits in the megawad, as well as the most consistent visual style. His maps balance out his compatriots' more experimental benders, and feature some of the most explosive action Jpcp has to offer. The congested, ambush-riddled Thaumasia is no exception. There's not much to it, really. Find the blue key, cross the poison pits, walk into a trick exit, and 100 monsters will spawn in with an emphatic FIGHT! I was very unhappy to find this secret SSG after I'd already killed everything. Oh well, next time I suppose. Grade B, difficulty C+. Map 5, Wood Exile. Wood Exile is an intriguing landfill of a level, one of the most frustrating maps in the entire megawad, but not for lack of imagination. Its author, Toasty, contributed 4 maps to Jpcp, and those 4 maps define an entire mapping philosophy all on their own. His style is inimitable, but not for everybody. Let's have a look at Wood Exile. It starts out as your standard wooden fortress, bookshelves, candlesticks, the whole 9 yards, and then it starts to unravel, like one of Sandy Peterson's abstract kind of hell type aberrations turned up to 11. Toasty puts more effort into making his maps look like they were hit by a bomb than most mappers put into their maps. This level is a misshapen, hyper-textured smear of protrusions, fragments, crags, craters, flesh, and junk. There is a such thing as too many textures, and no, that's not the same thing as this.
Too many notes, Your Majesty.
Exactly. Very well put. Too many notes.
When your texture use is so fast and loose that sometimes I can't tell a wall from a door, you've got a problem. Did I mention there are 8 secrets in this map? The other thing about Wood Exile that bothers me is the combat clearly plays second fiddle to the aesthetics, and that goes for all Toasty's maps except for one. The only highlight I can think of is the opening, where you're stuck with just the chain gun for a while and you're forced to get creative. The worst is this ending section, a painful combination of darkness, hit scanners, platforming, and fire blue. Just bottom of the barrel stuff. This is a rare case where a map demonstrates abundant imagination and appears to be a labor of love, but I still despise it. Grade D, difficulty B-. Map 6, Riminchi Valley. A handsome and engaging palette cleanser, Riminchi Valley is a miniature adventure map with some really eye-catching locales. This watery cavern with the blue key is a sight to behold, and the view inside this secret portal is a reward in itself. I have to admit this map benefits to an almost unfair extent from its MIDI. Come to think of it, so does Alien Vendetta's Beast Island. Both levels have Lands of Lore 2 to thank for boosting their atmospheres. With under 100 enemies, Riminchi Valley doesn't hog your time, content to be just another stop on your ride through Jpcp. For a community project map, that's an attractive quality. Grade B+, difficulty C. Map 7, Confused Arena. This arena is the opposite of confused. Tatsurd-cacocaco's dead simple replacement is direct, focused, and efficient. The fights are snappy, but also pretty polite. I never feel seriously threatened by this map, partly because the courtyard really lends itself to running circles around foes. The sloped railings on these bridges are a nice touch, and on the whole, this is probably the nicest looking map that Jpcp's project leader submitted. It's also my favorite of his to play and replay. Grade B, difficulty C. Map 8, 54 Pit. Striking, eerie, creative, and delightful. 54 Pit is a huge upswing from Toasty's previous outing. It's another blasted, mutated place, absolutely rippling with variety and experimentation. It's somewhat more approachable than Woodexial and significantly less garish, though it's still uncanny and sometimes off-putting. I don't understand how all these environments can exist in the same level, unless Toasty's trying to simulate some kind of distorted fractal reality made up of rogue, splinter dimensions all intersecting at once. You'll bump into this map's first surprise when you hit the tab key. The auto map is a Doom comic. And not just that, it's a Doom comic depicting the level you're in. These creepy bones look familiar? Find the bathroom for another shocker. You get jumped by demons who teleport in from a mirror dimension that is a literal bathroom mirror dimension, and when you go to leave, the door won't budge, but closer inspection of the mirror will reveal a switch behind the demonic corruption that you can still activate from your side. I was floored the first time I found this room, which is completely optional by the way. It's actually impossible to get all the keys before you find the exit room, and Toasty offers you the choice to leave or root around the level some more. You already know what I did. Thankfully, 54 Pit's zaniness and artistic flair managed to not get in the way of its action, which makes it deserving of an A with a difficulty of C. What the hell is a 54 Pit anyway? Map 9, the 3 World. An unexpected dosage of good old-fashioned 90s style mapping, the 3 World is unassuming and actually quite comfy for playing like such a fish out of water in this megawad. It's nowhere near as detailed or sophisticated as its peers, but the simplicity gives it a vintage feel that really ingratiates itself to me for some reason. In the text file, map author Tyusen121 refers to himself as a beginner map designer and cites Doom 2's tricks and traps as this map's main influence. I mean, I sort of see it, with the central hub room and wheel-spoke hallways, but the fights aren't quite as memorable. Not that it didn't make me sweat a bit here and there. The 3 World can easily be written off as amateur hour, but for what it's worth, I've had fun every time I played it. Grade B-, difficulty C-. Map 10, the Odd Encampment. Odd indeed. This map has a few outstanding ideas and high-intensity fights, but they'll likely be overshadowed by its frustratingly opaque progression on your first go-around. This flash mob of revenants will overwhelm you if you didn't notice the least guarded BFG in world history, and the archvile placements throughout this level are downright insidious. The red key trap is my favorite. What a ball buster. I love it. Hit these 4 switches and don't trip the flashing lights on the ground to escape this all-around excellent room. Unfortunately, it's all downhill from here. The path to the 2 remaining keys is unclear, to say the least. I won't bore you with a blow-by-blow, but it involves hitting several switches and finding out 5 or 10 minutes later what they did. The Odd Encampment is full of dead air and strange design decisions, kind of like TNT Evolution without the nostalgia factor. Grade B-, difficulty B. Map 11, My Fave. Absolutely adorable odyssey through a series of fruit and dessert themed mini-worlds, My Fave is too pure for this world, seriously. It's lighthearted and unabashedly fluffy, with admittedly little substance on the action side, but who cares? Map designer Nanka Kurashiki also happens to be the artist behind the title and end screens, as well as a precious collection of Doom fan art that you all should do yourselves a favor and Google search right away. My Fave loves its puzzles and pitfalls. Going for this early BFG rewards you with a swift death, as does failure to decode this torch puzzle's survival guide in the Caco realm. Step on a block with a tall torch and you're gonzo. Most people who played this remember the last room and its immortal question, do you like Caco? Nah, they're not for me. Just kidding. Caco forever. Make sure you remember the order of the color-coded zones you visited, and you'll make it out unscathed. My Fave is charming and joyous, and I love it. Grade A. Difficulty C. Map 12, Magnetic Force Apparatus. The first of Barabo Jr.'s signature space maps, Magnetic Force Apparatus is a real looker with some claustrophobic corridor shooting action and an excellent soundtrack to boot. Suspended above the vast cosmos, Magnetic Force Apparatus might give you a bit of vertigo as you take on Hell's multitudes. This cargo base sets the stage for the map's most entertaining moments, notably this hit scanner heavy teleport ambush. not a huge fan of the final fight though. You're reduced to either waiting for all the monsters to kill each other or letting them into your safe space single file. Magnetic Force Apparatus introduces one of Jpcp's best recurring design tropes and offers sufficient excitement to get the player engaged. Grade B+, difficulty B-. Map 13, Bad Morning. Get up, Doom guy, it's time to fight some demons. This map is the Doom equivalent of one of those quilts people make out of their custom t-shirts. Bad Morning manages to salvage something interesting out of unwanted patchwork elements, but I can't picture anybody but its creator getting pleasure out of it. The premise is already strange. Doom guy wakes up in a king-size bed to find demons in his house? Yeah, I doubt it. This map is essentially a bloated sprawl of ideas appended to one another, culminating in the single ugliest room in Jpcp, a crater full of demons with texturing so chunky and colorblind it makes Sandy Peterson look like Claude Monet. After grinding through this level twice, I wanted an explanation for what I just put myself through, and in the Megawatts text file, I found one. Blowing up demons with rockets is always fantastic, so I made this map. And yes, I love beds. Grade D-, difficulty C+. Map 14, GT Factory. Only hardcore fans of TNT Evolution will understand the appeal of this map. It's cut from the exact same cloth as Final Doom's more maligned half. It's the Tom Mustaine music, the abrasive hit scan placement, and the weird, almost hostile secrets, like the one where you have to jump in the poison and hump a wall to find a chainsaw? Come on. My favorite is this random patch of grass which teleports you to a BFG behind a fake wall. I don't know what's more TNT than that. I think I also enjoy GT Factory because its most inexplicable elements seem to be the product of inexperience more than a desire to be mean or contrarian. It's far from technical perfection, but it doesn't play any worse than your average Doom 2 map, and besides that, it's kind of endearing. Grade C+, difficulty B-. Map 15, Nandeanen? Which roughly translates to, what the heck? Or, you gotta be kidding. This map starts living up to its name right away. Open this door and another will open behind you. Open that door and whoops, it's actually an elevator. Open the next door and, oh, nothing happened. But grab the Berserk and, what the heck? This is another Naka Kurashiki map, and this time she's not messing around. I'd venture to say this is the hardest map in the set so far, especially for players who aren't familiar with its shenanigans. Some of the fights here are pretty gnarly, lots of close quarters Revenants, Hell Knights, and Barons, which you'll have to fend off with a shotgun unless you manage to find the super secret SSG. I highly recommend it. The Cyber Demon Revenant Hedge Mace is a high point. Run around and get everything to infight, and when you're ready, you can smush the Cyber Demon. Help yourself to this dead Baron's potato chips while you watch, but I'd avoid the cola. Baron backwash, you know. Since it's map 15, you'll be able to take the secret exit if you can find and eliminate 5 Commander Keens, but that's easier said than done. Man, some of these secrets are tough. Nandeanen has a lot of sass, and I highly recommend replaying it if you found your first encounter with it frustrating. Grade A-, difficulty B+. Map 31, Manufacturing Plant. Let's just say maps like this remind you that you're playing a community project. The first half of Manufacturing Plant is primitive, obsessed with right angles, and chainsaw heavy if you don't want to bore yourself to death pistoling everything. I don't know how you're going to enjoy this map if you don't find this hilariously obscure automap secret, because the other secrets it leads you to are also hilariously obscure for the most part, and contain some pretty important stuff. You know, super shotgun, plasma, the keys you'll need to get to map 32. The second half has the acreage of a national park, which makes avoiding projectiles trivial. Same goes for this last room, where you get a jumbo jet hangar's worth of space to dodge Cyber Demon rockets. If this map has any appeal, it's not in the combat, it's in the secret hunting, which you get a map for, so it's not meant to be hard. Except to open the gate to the secret exit, you have to notice this switch inside the enclosure and shoot it, which is way trickier than anything else in this map. This might be some people's least favorite level in the whole Megawatt, and I wouldn't blame them. Personally, I kinda get a kick out of its clumsiness and audacity. Grade C-, difficulty D+. Footnote, can anybody explain what in God's name is going on in this intertitle? Map 32, Blood Fund Gang. First time I played this map, I thought I was shooting up a demon hotel, but I did some reading and discovered that it's actually a bank, and there's a secret safe full of gold bars and a megasphere at the end of it that you can loot if you make it to the right room in time. 5 minutes into the level, the safe opens for a 5-second window before closing for good. It's a novel concept, but I haven't practiced the map enough to stage a successful heist yet. Not that I didn't enjoy myself. In 2 instances, you'll trip invisible alarms that call in the fuzz. It makes for some great shootouts, which get me feeling like... Blood Fund Gang is proof that Toasty is a force to be reckoned with when he can rein in his inclination towards chaos. Very comparable to Syriac Harris's work in Going Down in terms of ingenuity and verisimilitude. Of course, you can't help but blow a few holes in the building at the end. Oh well. Grade A-, difficulty C+. Map 16, Forlorn Defense Line. With this being his final map, hats off to tatsurd-cacocaco for making this project happen. That said, I think his biggest contribution to Jpcp was in the recruiting department. Forlorn Defense Line is sort of underwhelming. I just played it and I'm having a hard time recalling anything about it. The visuals are workmanlike at best, sort of reminiscent of Alien Vendetta, I guess. The fights can be taken piecemeal and are painfully standard, except for this stupid final shootout with a spider demon, 2 archviles, and a gaggle of chain gunners with limited cover. It's more annoying annoying than challenging. Out of his 4 maps in Jpcp, I get the sense that this was the one tatsurd-cacocaco spent the most time on, but it doesn't hold a candle to most of Toasty, Nanka, and Barabo Jr.'s work. Grade C+, difficulty B-. Map 17, UAC Energy Plant. Blow away! UAC Energy Plant is like Barrels of Fun except set in space and actually fun. Don't be intimidated by the high enemy count. At least half of them will blow themselves up or get mowed down by their friends. Like its sibling map, Magnetic Force Apparatus, UAC Energy Plant has abundant visual flair, but scant space for fancy footwork. Thankfully, you won't have to do much of that, just hold down the fire button and enjoy the pyrotechnics. One could argue that this map is the worst example of Barabo's tendency to spam the player with big, dopey monster clusters, but it also comes at a point in the WoD where the player could use a break in the form of a quick, brainless shoot-em-up. And come on, who doesn't like explosions? Grade B+, difficulty C+. Map 18, Spaceport Panic. Yikes, that spelling. I could take or leave Spaceport Panic. It's clearly the work of a novice, but it's not as clever or ambitious as other novice work in this megawad. Most of the level takes place in this incredibly dark waiting room. It refills with monsters when you find keys or trip certain line defs, so unless you're planning on beating the map in under 2 minutes, don't rely on that light amplification visor. If you cross into this area, a comical amount of demons will spawn in and try to gank you. I honestly don't know whether the map author wanted this to be a hard fight, or if he just felt like adding 2 more pointless minutes to his map's runtime. Either way, this in-fight party is actually the most fun I had here, and that's not good. Grade D, difficulty C+. Map 19, Remind. Playing Remind is a surreal, almost purgatorial experience, from the dead, gray world you start in, through haunted lands and abandoned tech bases, all the way to its infernal end. This is Nanka Kurashiki again. She's come a long way from making maps out of Parfait. This dead outpost really creeps me out, actually. Look at how this door snaps shut when you walk inside for the first time. You'll need the blue key to open it up again, and within you'll find some kind of dimensional rift, which takes you through the void and empties out in an ominous hell cathedral. Jpcp has a tendency to neglect its action in favor of visuals. Nanka herself is guilty of this in map 11, but I'm happy to report that Remind has some excellent fights, forcing the player to be frugal with ammo and use their head all the way through. I used Berserk pretty frequently and exited with 60 bullets and 20 shells. If I were you, I wouldn't even pull out the plasma gun until you lay eyes on the cyber demon at the end. Remind has got it all. Great sights, atmosphere, and thrills galore. Grade A, difficulty B. Map 20, Escape from UAC Space Base. The epic conclusion to Barabo Jr.'s space trilogy, Escape from UAC Space Base is the grandest and loveliest of the 3, and gets a substantial boost from its MIDI, a Stuart Rinn track from Speed of Doom. This is one of the megawad's aesthetic peaks, a triumph of lighting and color coordination full of neat details like these Star Wars-y doors that open from the top and bottom at once. But as always, Barabo is at his best when he's turning up the heat. Though it's nowhere near as hyperactive as Barabo's last 2 interstellar adventures, Escape from UAC Space Base can get pretty aggressive, especially with Archviles. I could probably play a full episode's worth of maps in this style, but I'm glad Barabo decided to change things up in the final stretch. The next 2 maps are both his work and prove that he's no one-trick pony. Grade A. Difficulty B-. Map 21, Search and Destroy. Search and Destroy is a warm-up for Jpcp's final act, a miniature gauntlet designed to whet your killer instinct. Of the 4 encounters in this map, this dead simple-esque arena reinforced with cacos and revenants is definitely my favorite, just a good old-fashioned run and gun. It's surprisingly hard to evade damage in the Mancubus sandwich behind the blue door, and Barabo Jr. caps off the map with a Cyber Demon duel. Get rid of the pinkies and sprinkle Mr. Cybe with plasma till he dies. Nothing to it. Search and Destroy is an excellent transition map, succinct and replayable. Grade B, difficulty C. Map 22, A Den of Vice. Man, oh man, if grades were based on looks and atmosphere alone, A Den of Vice would be at the top of the class. This tech-based power outage is a feast for the eyes, but just you wait. Find the blue key and you'll discover the base's volcanic core and the Hell Castle emerging from it. First time I played it, this map took my breath away. Barabo Jr.'s command of spectacle was never in doubt, but this Soul Sphere secret? Unbelievable. The view of this molten subterranean ruin and its fire-spewing denizens? Jaw-dropping. Sadly, the action simply doesn't live up to its billing. It's nothing but cheap ambushes and boring infight parties, and the map is overly generous with health and armor pickups. This point-blank Cyber Demon is an especially cheap shot. The fact that this is still one of my favorite maps in Jpcp is a testament to the power of Barabo's visual imagination, but it could have been so much more. Grade A-, difficulty B-. Map 23, Thermal Disposal Place. Well, it's got a weird name, and it's flat, secret-heavy, and formulaic. So what? I love it. Thermal Disposal Place is Guna's lone contribution to Jpcp, and I wish we could have seen more from him. The first thing that really impresses me is the visual consistency. Guna decided on a look and stuck with it to the end, which shows a lot more maturity and restraint than some of the maps we've already been through. The lava pumping through the walls motif and these dynamic heatwave textures are rad as hell, and the pervasive use of burnished brown metal makes the whole level feel industrial, warm, and cozy all at the same time. It might have something to do with the MIDI, another gem from Rise of the Triad. The action is unrelenting. There's a fight around every corner, and for each of the 2 required keys you find, there's a massive throwdown. I berserk my way through the red key one because it's fun and saves rockets for the much more dangerous blue key entourage. Maybe it's because I tracked down the auto map in my first playthrough, but I absolutely love the optional stuff in this map. At the very least, you'll want to find the yellow key, because it unlocks a BFG right before the epic final fight, which is again a dead ringer. As of the time of this review's writing, I haven't actually picked a valedictorian, but Thermal Disposal Place is my favorite map in this Megawad, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Grade A. Difficulty C+. Map 24. Probably, maybe, certainly. What the hell is this? Well, we had a good run, boys and girls. Maps 19 to 23 represent the most reliably entertaining stretch of levels this Megawad has to offer, but they're over now, and I'm sad. And to tell you the truth, I'm rambling right now because I probably, maybe, actually certainly don't want to talk about this map. It's another one of those stream of consciousness experiences that I have to imagine tatsurd-121 hammered out in the span of like a day. Even a tiny bit of reflection or perspective would reveal that this map just doesn't work, starting with this stupidly cramped cage area full of revenants and hit scanners that come at you single file, but then it's an office building, but then it's a crate maze, but then it's a hell village, but then it's an incredibly irritating 3x3 grid where some of the doors are locked and your movement is needlessly restricted, and also there are arch files, and also this is easily the most annoying MIDI in the Megawad. Please, please, please shut up. Moral of the story, tatsurd-121 isn't a pro and shouldn't be held at the standards of one, but this map is much worse than his other entry, so play it instead, and forget this one. Not probably, not maybe, certainly. Grade D-, difficulty C+. Map 25, Kakravartan's Miscalculation. With this daunting and monolithic spectacular, the Nankakurashiki cycle reaches its conclusion. She will be missed. I have to say, this is my least favorite of her maps. Maybe my IQ just isn't high enough, but I always seem to spend more time running around empty hallways, missing jumps, and checking the auto map than I do killing demons. The fights also seem to have a lot less zing than those in Remind and Nandayanen. Even the Cyber Showdown in the Red Key Throne Room is a bit anticlimactic, just infight, BFG, and it's over before you know it. Kakravartan looks sensational, no doubt about it, but it gets a little caught up in itself. Grade B, difficulty B-. Map 26, Embodiment of Maliciousness. I know what you're thinking. Embodiment of Maliciousness? Ooh, scary. Yeah, that's what I thought too, before it proceeded to hand me my ass. I skipped replaying it before recording because I was dreading it, and when the time rolled around to play it, it handed me my ass again for 50 minutes. Believe me, it's not hyperbole or a muffed translation. This map is fucking mean, and knows it. Half the battle in this level is figuring out where to go next. It's a goddamn maze. The other half is negotiating some of the Megawad's nastiest fights. I have to hand it to Yully. Though I don't enjoy a lot of these encounters, I have to admit he's got some good ideas, like this pit full of arch files and revenants where every button press raises the floor tiles such that the whole contour of the room changes, this cramped room with pillars that drop in staggered waves of monsters in close quarters, this satanic chapel with a spider mastermind and a choir of sniping chain gunners and revenants, and this graveyard. Actually, the graveyard fight can burn in hell. In the text file, Yully claims that this is his first time mapping, which I definitely wouldn't have guessed judging by the level of detail, ingenuity, and dickishness present here, but based on his closing sentence, I think we could be friends. I hope Doom will never be forgotten. Same here, Yully. Grade B-, difficulty A. Map 27, A Resplendent Emerald Green. Gee, I wonder if Barabo Jr.'s ever played Sunlust. Kidding aside, a Resplendent Emerald Green is one of the most intricately detailed and gorgeous maps I've ever played. It's a work of art. I was expecting it to completely destroy me because it looks just like a Rubik's map, but it's actually one of the tamest levels in the set, barely topping a few hundred foes with fights so interspersed and forgettable that it's actually boring. For most of the level, you'll be hunting down and killing 13 hidden Commander Keens to open up the exit, which is kinda cute the first time around, but man does it kill the replay value. The final skirmish against 4 Archviles and a few Revenants is a tiny blip of excitement taunting the player with what might have been. Barabo Jr. is obviously a brilliant talent when it comes to art design, but that doesn't change the fact that a Resplendent Emerald Green is one of the biggest missed opportunities I've seen in all my days of Doom playing. Grade B+, difficulty C-. Map 28, Hellport. Whew. Wow. Where do I even begin? Hellport is JPCP's tour de force, and it's not even really up for debate. Its setting is entrancing and its action blistering, but the monumental scale at which both are implemented is what makes it so impressive. What's really shocking is Hellport is Masa's lone contribution to the set. It's almost as if he was reluctant to submit for fear of embarrassing his team members. It's worth noting that his map also strikes a better balance between combat and aesthetics than the vast majority of JPCP, with its only rivals being Confused Arena, Nandaonen, and Thermal Disposal Place. Even though it's a long and sometimes overwhelming playthrough, Hellport tends to be quite relaxing, thanks in no small part to its music. I don't love everything about this map. The progression gets a little stilted, with keys and critical switches sometimes placed too far apart, and some of the fights are just mean. Masa tends to abuse hit scanners and arch files a bit for my liking, and this early battle in the harbor is particularly pitiless, forcing you to dodge long-range Cyberdemon rockets while negotiating a path to a much-needed rat suit. Don't worry, Hellport makes up for all its misdeeds with his Speed of Doom-esque Red Key Slaughterfest. I think it's impossible not to admire this map's ambition and how successfully it fulfills it. Grade A, difficulty A. Map 29, Hazmat Hazama. I think the inside of a black hole would look something like Hazmat Hazama. This is Toasty's final form, his apotheosis, his ultimate statement of chaos. Put simply, Hazmat Hazama is a Franken level composed of bits and pieces of 1,000 half-formed maps, a frightening heap of stillborn ideas glued together with no discernible purpose, hurtling through the void. Wood Exial feels like home by comparison. In Hazmat Hazama, nothing has meaning. Exit signs mock you, monsters merely meander, and every fight feels like an accident. Secrets are completely indistinguishable from the intended way forward. I have never felt so unmoored in a Doom map, so uncared for, so alone. During my first playthrough, I had no choice but to id-clip to the end, because I just kept falling, getting lost, and I couldn't figure out that you had to jump up on this forklift and run along these cubicles to get up on the castle wall. I know that sentence sounded insane, but it's the kind of mindset that Hazmat Hazama puts you in. I think that most people's reactions to this map will go something like this.
Brilliant! I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Hazmat Hazama forsakes fun in its madcap quest to unravel the universe. It's a piece of art, not a Doom map. Grade B-, difficulty C. Map 30, Every Beginning Has an End. Barabo Jr.'s final gift to the Japanese community project is a quick and merciful rendition of the Icon of Sin. All you have to do is hit 6 skull switches, hose down the Cyberdemon, and hop on his platform, which takes you right up to the Icon's level. Pump 3 rockets into his brain and you're done. Barabo has my sincere thanks for not making this level a big ordeal. Grade B, difficulty D. So, the Japanese community project is a delightful grab bag with enough color, creativity, and soul to hang with the best modern Doom has to offer. Even its more inexperienced mappers bring something special to the table, with most of them kicking the tar out of the Community Chess Series' worst offerings. Something I admire about JPCP's designers is their collective lack of ego. My biggest complaint with most community projects is that they make no pretense of offering a continuous experience, instead serving as a gallery of individual masterpieces meant to be tackled one at a time. JPCP doesn't do that. For all its inconsistencies, frustrations, and failed experiments, the Japanese community project feels like a team effort, and that means a lot to me. My final grade for this megawad is an A-. Fleetingly brilliant, occasionally messy, but always worth your time. As for difficulty, it just barely misses the B range, landing solidly at a C+. Most of these maps are low impact, if a bit non-traditional, with a real challenge arriving late and laying on less hurt than you'd expect. Now for my Dean's List. Valedictorian, Map 28, Hellport. Salutatorian, Map 19, Remind. Class President, Map 26, Embodiment of Maliciousness. And the dunce cap goes to Map 24, probably, maybe, certainly. I'm gonna bust out the honor roll for JPCP, I think it deserves it. Map 8, 54 Pit. Map 11, My Fave. Map 15, Nandaonen. Map 32, Blood Fund Gang. Map 20, Escape from UAC Space Base. Map 22, A Den of Vice. And Map 23, Thermal Disposal Place. Thank you very much for watching, and please feel free to share your thoughts in the WAD down below. I'd love to hear what you think, and I'll heart your comments to let you know I've read them. This is Mount Pain 27, and I'll see you in the next episode of Dean of Doom.